The sun had barely risen over the White House when Ivanka Trump received a message that sent shivers down her spine. A trusted aide, Linda Moore, was being fired. Linda wasn't just any employee. She had served the Trump family for over 20 years, long before Donald Trump's presidency. She was more than a worker, she was family. Linda had cooked their meals, sewn their clothes, and even cared for young Barron when Melania was traveling. But now, Linda was accused of leaking confidential information, a claim she vehemently denied. Ivanka had overheard her father's chief of staff discussing Linda's dismissal in hushed tones. As she pieced the story together, Ivanka's heart broke. Linda was a widow, her husband lost to cancer, and her only son was paralyzed in a car accident. Firing Linda would destroy her life. That evening, Ivanka sat in her room, holding a framed photo of Linda holding baby Ivanka decades ago. Tears welled up in her eyes as memories flooded back. Linda's warm smile, her soothing lullabies. How could her father not see the truth? "I won't let this happen," Ivanka whispered to herself. For the first time, she felt the weight of standing up to her father. Ivanka knew confronting her father would not be easy. President Donald Trump was known for his fiery temperament and unwavering decisions. But Ivanka believed in fairness and loyalty, values she thought her father held dear. The next morning, Ivanka entered the Oval Office. Her heart pounded as she saw her father seated at his desk reviewing documents. "Dad, I need to talk to you," she began, her voice trembling slightly. Donald looked up, his face a mix of curiosity and impatience. "Make it quick, Ivanka. Busy day ahead." "It's about Linda Moore," she said, stepping closer. "You can't fire her. She's innocent. Someone's feeding you lies." Donald leaned back in his chair, his expression hardening. "Ivanka, Linda broke the rules. She's a liability. We can't afford risks." "But Dad," Ivanka pressed, "she's been with us for years. She's like family. Think of everything she's done for us." Her father's eyes narrowed. "This isn't about loyalty. It's about protecting this administration." Ivanka clenched her fists. "If you fire Linda, you'll be breaking a heart that has already endured too much. Do you want that on your conscience?" For the first time, Donald hesitated. Determined to save Linda, Ivanka began investigating the source of the accusations. She enlisted the help of Jared Kushner, her husband, who had access to key documents. Together, they uncovered a shocking revelation. The accusations against Linda had been fabricated by a rival staffer seeking to shift blame for a security breach. That night, Ivanka visited Linda in the staff quarters. Linda sat by a dim lamp, her hands trembling as she folded clothes. She looked up and managed a weak smile. "Miss Ivanka, I heard the news. It's been an honor serving you all these years." Ivanka's eyes filled with tears. "Linda, you're not going anywhere, I promise." Linda pulled out a letter from her pocket, her hands shaking. "I wrote this for your father. I just wanted him to know I'd never betray him." Ivanka read the letter, her tears spilling onto the paper. It was heartfelt, detailing Linda's gratitude for the Trump family and her unwavering loyalty. "He needs to see this," Ivanka whispered. As she left Linda's quarters, Ivanka felt a surge of determination. She would present the letter to her father, but she also knew the battle ahead would test her courage like never before. Ivanka sat outside the Oval Office, clutching Linda's handwritten letter. Her heart felt like it might burst. She had never confronted her father so directly before, and the weight of what was at stake left her breathless. Inside, Donald Trump paced back and forth. His advisors filled the room, their voices rising as they debated the next move. For them, Linda was just another employee, expendable in the political game. But for Ivanka, she was a symbol of loyalty, love, and humanity. Ivanka stepped inside, holding her head high. The room fell silent. "Dad, I need to talk to you, alone." Donald waved his advisors away, his gaze fixed on his daughter. "What is it now, Ivanka?" he said, his voice sharp. She handed him the letter without saying a word. He took it reluctantly and began to read. The room grew heavy with silence as his expression shifted. For a moment, The fiery president was gone, replaced by a man lost in thought. When he finished, he folded the letter carefully and placed it on his desk. "This changes nothing," he said firmly, though his voice betrayed a hint of doubt. Ivanka's eyes filled with tears, but she refused to give up. Ivanka left the Oval Office with her heart heavier than before. She knew she had struck a chord with her father, but it wasn't enough. Time was running out, and Linda's termination papers had already been prepared. Desperate for a breakthrough, Ivanka called Linda's daughter-in-law, Maria. She knew Linda's story needed to reach her father in a way that even he couldn't ignore. Maria answered the call with a shaky voice, revealing something that left Ivanka stunned. Linda had secretly been using her savings to pay for her grandson's medical treatments. The boy, just 10 years old, was battling leukemia. Linda never asked for help, never complained. She carried the burden quietly, all while serving the Trump family with unwavering dedication. Ivanka's chest tightened as she listened. She could picture Linda's kind face, the pain she hid behind her warm smile. This wasn't just about saving a job, it was about saving a life. With tears streaming down her cheeks, Ivanka vowed to fight harder. She knew she had to show her father the full truth, the sacrifice, the love, the humanity that Linda embodied. The clock was ticking, and Ivanka wasn't sure if she could win this fight. That evening, Ivanka called an emergency family meeting. Melania sat quietly, her face unreadable. Baron, though young, listened intently. Eric and Don Jr. exchanged uneasy glances. The family wasn't used to Ivanka taking such a bold stand. "I need all of you to hear Linda's story," Ivanka began, her voice trembling. "This isn't just about her job, it's about her life." She recounted everything: Linda's years of loyalty, her sacrifices, and the heartbreaking battle her grandson faced. As she spoke, Melania's eyes glistened with tears. Even Eric and Don Jr. shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Donald Trump listened silently, his face hard to read. When Ivanka finished, the room fell silent. Melania was the first to speak. "She's always been kind to us," she said softly. "We owe her more than this." Eric nodded reluctantly. "Maybe we should look into this more." For the first time, Ivanka saw a flicker of compassion in her father's eyes. But before he could respond, an urgent knock interrupted them. A staffer entered, holding a document that could change everything. "Sir," the staffer said, "you need to see this." The room held its breath. The staffer handed the document to Donald Trump with a look of urgency. The room was tense, every eye watching as the president unfolded the papers. Ivanka's hands were clasped tightly together, her heart pounding. Donald's face hardened as he read. His eyes moved quickly over the words, his brow furrowing deeper with each line. Then he let out a deep breath and placed the document on the table. "What is it, Dad?" Ivanka asked softly. Donald didn't look up. "It's proof," he said flatly. "The accusations against Linda were false. The real leak came from someone else, a junior staffer who confessed this morning." The room was stunned. Melania put her hand over her heart, while Eric and Don Jr. exchanged wide-eyed glances. Ivanka felt a wave of relief, but it was quickly replaced by anger. So Linda was going to lose everything for something she didn't do? Her voice was steady but filled with emotion. Donald finally met her gaze. "It seems so," he admitted, his voice quieter than usual. For a moment, Ivanka saw something she rarely saw in her father: remorse. But would it be enough to save Linda? Ivanka didn't wait for her father to act. She walked out of the room, determined to find Linda and tell her the truth. The weight of the past days had been unbearable, and she couldn't let another moment pass without making things right. She found Linda in the staff quarters, sitting quietly with her knitting. The older woman looked up, her eyes weary but kind. "Miss Ivanka," she said, her voice trembling, "what brings you here?" Ivanka sat beside her, tears welling up in her eyes. "Linda, you've been wronged. The truth has come out, and I need to apologize on behalf of all of us. You've given so much, and we failed you." Linda's hands shook as she placed her knitting down. "I never blamed you, Miss Ivanka," she said gently. "I just prayed that the truth would come to light." Ivanka couldn't hold back her tears any longer. "You've been like family to us, Linda. I won't let you suffer anymore. You deserve justice, and I'll make sure you get it." Linda reached out and took Ivanka's hand. "Your kindness means everything to me, dear. Sometimes, all we need is one person to believe in us." That night, the Trump family gathered once again. Ivanka shared Linda's story, her voice filled with passion and heartbreak. She didn't shy away from the details, the sacrifices, the false accusations, and the pain Linda had endured. As Ivanka spoke, Melania wiped away a tear. Eric and Don Jr. looked uncomfortable, shifting in their seats. Baron, quiet as always, gave a small nod of approval. Donald sat silently, his hands clasped together. When Ivanka finished, he looked at her with a mix of pride and frustration. "You've made your point, Ivanka. But this isn't just about Linda. It's about setting a precedent. If we overturn her dismissal, it might make us look weak." "It's not weakness to admit a mistake, Dad," Ivanka replied firmly. "It's strength, and it's the right thing to do." The room fell silent. Finally, Melania spoke. "Donald, we've always valued loyalty. Linda deserves ours now." Donald looked at his family, then at the letter from Linda still sitting on his desk. The battle wasn't over, but for the first time, Ivanka felt a glimmer of hope. Would Donald Trump choose integrity over politics? Donald Trump sat alone in the Oval Office, the weight of Ivanka's words heavy on his mind. The letter from Linda lay before him, a haunting reminder of his decision's consequences. For decades, he had prided himself on his strength and resolve, but this situation was different. Linda wasn't just an employee. She was a woman who had been with his family through triumphs and trials. She had wiped tears from Ivanka's face as a child, stayed late to help Melania, and even once prayed with him during a tough campaign night. Could he really justify letting her go? A knock at the door broke his thoughts. It was Ivanka. Her face was pale but determined. "Dad, you can't ignore this. Linda's life is tied to us. We owe her more than a cold dismissal." Donald leaned back, his face unreadable. "Ivanka, you've made this personal. Politics isn't about emotions." "This isn't about politics," Ivanka shot back, her voice breaking. "It's about doing the right thing." For the first time in years, Donald Trump felt torn. The leader in him wanted to stay firm, but the father in him wanted to listen. The next morning, Ivanka decided to visit Linda again. This time, she brought her 12-year-old daughter, Arabella. She wanted her child to understand the value of compassion and loyalty. When they arrived, Linda greeted them with a warm but tired smile. "Miss Ivanka, you shouldn't trouble yourself," Linda said softly. Arabella handed Linda a bouquet of flowers. "Thank you for taking care of my mom when she was little," the young girl said. Linda's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, sweet child," she whispered, pulling Arabella into a gentle hug. As they sat together, Linda shared stories Ivanka had never heard before. She spoke about the nights she stayed up sewing costumes for school plays, the meals she prepared for family dinners, and the prayers she said for the family's success. "I've never wanted anything in return," Linda said, her voice trembling, "just to serve and protect a family I've grown to love." Arabella turned to her mother. "Mom, Grandpa has to change his mind. He can't let Linda go." Ivanka nodded, her resolve growing stronger. She knew the only way to convince her father was to show him the woman behind the role. That evening, Donald Trump received an unexpected visitor, Melania. She entered the Oval Office quietly, her expression calm but firm. "Donald, I need to talk to you," she began. He looked up from his desk, surprised. "Melania, what's on your mind?" She took a seat across from him and placed a small photo album on the table. "This is Linda's legacy," she said. Donald opened the album reluctantly. Inside were photos of Linda with the family, holding Ivanka as a baby, baking cookies with Eric and Don Jr., and even smiling with Baron during his birthday party. Each image told a story of care and dedication. Donald, this woman has given her life to our family, Melania said, her voice steady. She deserves more than this. Do you want to be remembered as the man who turned his back on someone who stood by us through everything? Donald closed the album, his jaw tight. He hated being challenged, but deep down he couldn't ignore the truth in her words. For the first time in days, he felt the stirrings of doubt about his decision. But was it too late to make things right? The day after Melania's visit to the Oval Office, Ivanka received a surprising call. It was Linda's grandson, Michael, the boy battling leukemia. His voice was frail but determined. "Miss Ivanka," he said, "my grandma told me what's happening. I want to help her. Can you take me to see your grandpa?" Ivanka's heart ached. This child, who should be focused on his recovery, was worried about his grandmother. She hesitated, knowing how unpredictable her father could be, but Michael's courage inspired her. That afternoon, Ivanka and Michael arrived at the White House. The boy clutched a small handmade card in his tiny hands. Inside, he had drawn a picture of Linda smiling with the Trump family. Above it, in shaky letters, he had written, "Thank you for loving my grandma." When they entered the Oval Office, Donald Trump looked up, surprised. "Who's this?" he asked, his tone softer than usual. "I'm Michael," the boy said, stepping forward. "Grandpa Trump, please don't fire my grandma. She's my hero." For a moment, the powerful president was just a grandfather, touched by a child's pure heart. The room fell silent as Donald stared at the card, visibly moved. The news of Linda's possible dismissal had leaked, and the media was ablaze with speculation. Across the country, millions tuned in to watch what the Trumps would do. Some criticized the family, but others rallied around Linda, sharing their own stories of loyalty and sacrifice. Inside the White House, the atmosphere was tense. Donald Trump had always thrived under the scrutiny of the world, but this felt different. The stakes weren't just political, they were deeply personal. That evening, Ivanka appeared on live television. Her voice was steady, but her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "My family has always believed in loyalty and integrity," she said. "Linda is not just an employee, she's a symbol of the kindness and dedication we should all strive for. We owe her so much more than this." Her words resonated far and wide. Social media erupted with messages of support for Linda. Hashtags like "Justice for Linda" and "Trump family values" began trending. People of all ages, from all walks of life, found themselves deeply moved by the story. As Donald watched from his office, he couldn't ignore the power of his daughter's words. But was he ready to let his guard down and follow his heart? The next morning, Donald Trump called Ivanka into his office. His face was serious, but his eyes held a glimmer of something softer, something rare. "I've made my decision," he said. Ivanka held her breath, afraid to hope. Donald leaned back in his chair, tapping his fingers on the desk. "Linda stays. She's earned her place here. I was wrong to doubt her." Tears filled Ivanka's eyes as she rushed to embrace her father. "Thank you, Dad," she whispered. Donald pulled back, his expression a mix of pride and vulnerability. "You fought for what's right, Ivanka. That's something to admire." Later that day, the Trump family gathered in the Oval Office, with Linda and Michael joining them. Donald handed Linda the card Michael had made. "Your grandson is right," he said, his voice steady. "You're a hero." Linda's eyes filled with tears as she clutched the card to her chest. "Thank you, Mr. President," she said softly. "I'll continue to serve this family with all my heart." As the cameras captured the moment, a nation wept, not out of sadness, but out of hope and gratitude. The next day, the nation tuned in for a press conference at the White House. Donald Trump, flanked by Ivanka and Linda, stood before a sea of reporters. His expression was uncharacteristically solemn. "Today I want to address something personal," he began. His voice, usually so commanding, held a rare note of vulnerability. "Linda has been more than an employee to this family. She has been a cornerstone of our lives. Letting her go would have been one of the biggest mistakes of my life. Linda stood beside him, her hands clasped tightly. Tears streamed down her cheeks as the president turned to face her. "Linda, I'm sorry," he said, his voice steady. "I let politics cloud my judgment. You deserve the world's respect, and today I give it to you." The room erupted in applause as Linda, overwhelmed, embraced him. Ivanka stood silently, tears glistening in her eyes. It was a moment of unity, one that touched hearts across the globe. From hospital rooms to living rooms, people wept. For the first time, many saw a side of Donald Trump that felt deeply human. It was a moment of healing, for Linda, for the family, and for a divided nation. A week later, Linda's story was shared on every major platform. The media revealed her sacrifices, her love for the Trump family, and her unwavering faith in God through every trial. Viewers learned about her early days, working for the family, from organizing Ivanka's school projects to staying up all night preparing meals for campaign staff. They learned of her struggles as a single mother, raising 3 children, and how she had used her own savings to help others in need, even when she had little herself. But what struck people most was Linda's humility. In every interview, she deflected praise. "I was just doing my job," she said softly. Loyalty isn't about recognition. It's about love. Her grandson Michael also became a beacon of hope. Videos of him drawing pictures and praying for his grandmother went viral, inspiring countless viewers. People donated to help with his medical bills, and messages of support poured in from around the world. For Linda, it was overwhelming, but she remained grounded. "I don't need the world's attention," she told Ivanka one quiet afternoon. "I only need to know that my family, this family, understands how much I care." Months passed, and the story of Linda's loyalty became a symbol of kindness and unity. Ivanka decided to honor Linda's legacy in a unique way. She announced the creation of the Linda Foundation, a charity dedicated to helping loyal employees and caregivers around the country. During the launch event, Linda was the guest of honor. She stood on stage, trembling with emotion as Ivanka introduced her. "Linda taught me the true meaning of integrity," Ivanka said, her voice breaking. "She is proof that one person's love and loyalty can change the world." As Linda spoke to the audience, her words were simple but profound. Love isn't about grand gestures. It's about small acts of kindness that build over time. That's what I've tried to do. The event ended with Linda and Michael leading a prayer, thanking God for his blessings and for giving them the strength to persevere. As the story concluded, millions felt a deep sense of connection. Tears flowed freely, not from sadness, but from a profound sense of hope and gratitude. Dear viewers, if this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Let us continue spreading love and kindness just like Linda did. Your support means everything. Together, we can inspire the world.